Welcome everybody to the live webinar here at BINA. This week's topic is titled, Is Faith a Cop-Out? A lot of times we have and we ask questions about various things. For example, who says God exists? Why does God do bad things to good people? Why can't I mix milk and meat together? What kind of strange mitzvah and strange commandment is that? The answer to all of those questions, a lot of the times, is we just gotta believe. Is belief really a last resort? Is it that when I have no logical explanation, I have to go to the second best? I have to rely on belief. The truth is that not all the above questions go under the same umbrella. Once you know that there's a God and you understand what it means that there's a God, i.e. a transcendent being who is not limited by any of our meaning the creation's limitations, including the need to be created. Once you understand that, then most of the above questions fall away even logically. Is it a wonder that God does things that we don't understand? Emotionally, it might be hard to accept, but intellectually, why should I understand something that somebody who is totally not bound by our way of thinking or our rules or our limitations does? Is it no wonder that there are commands which we don't understand? For example, mixing milk and meat together. On the contrary, the fact that there are some things that we do understand, that's a question. How can us, finite human beings, understand and comprehend things that the infinite God does and things that the infinite God commands us to do? That's about most of the questions that we asked before. The main question is on the premise. Who says that there's a God? On that question, usually we are used to saying that you just need to believe. So, do we just need to believe? Or can we actually prove logically that there's a God? There are two levels to the answer to this question. There's the shallow answer, what I'm calling the shallow answer, what I'm calling the deeper answer. The shallow answer is yes, of course it can be proved that there's a God. In fact, the proof is so good that it's basically as good of a proof that World War I happened. Well, as we'll soon see. The deeper answer is that the truth is that knowing something based on faith is a lot deeper and infinitely deeper than knowing something based on logic. So no, it's not just faith. On the contrary, knowing something because I believe in it, the way faith is really, what emunah, what faith really means, is a much deeper connection to whatever you're believing in, to what you understand. Let's start with the first idea. Can we prove logically, intellectually, that God exists? The first thing that we need to establish is that nothing can be proven logically 100% beyond the shadow of a doubt in the true meaning of that word. For example, let's take the example that we just mentioned before. How do I know that World War I happened? Well, there are witnesses. People went through it. People have testified. Is it possible that those people made it up? Of course it's possible. Anything is possible. Anybody can make up anything. How do I know they're saying the truth? The fact that there's evidence to the war, maybe that evidence was fabricated. The fact that it's documented, anybody can write a story. Now, don't get me wrong, obviously I know that World War I happened. Why do I know that? It's because the above proofs, the fact that there are witnesses that went through it and passed on that it happened, and the fact that it's documented so well, and the fact that there's such good evidence, for every sane, normal human being, that is considered proof beyond the shadow of a doubt, 100% that event happened. I know it happened. Why? Because in my mind, it's impossible to say that one person can make up such a story. No, who would believe? It's impossible that someone after in a certain period of time came up with the story that there was something called World War I and the entire world believed it and it became a fact. It just doesn't make sense. Obviously, it happened because people went through it. There's evidence that it happened and it's very well documented. Well, 3,328 years ago, approximately 3 million Jews stood at Mount Sinai and heard God's voice and saw God speaking to them. You tell me, is it possible to fabricate such a story? That means that at one point in history, a person came along and said, oh, did you know that there were 3 million people who stood at a mountain and saw and heard God speaking to them at Mount Sinai? Who would believe such a person? If 3 million people saw such an event, how come I have never heard about it till now? The only logical conclusion to come to is that 3 million people actually did stand at Mount Sinai. Those 3 million people passed on that story to their children, who passed it on to their children, who passed it on to their children, till our very day that we know the story of the Jewish people standing at Mount Sinai, seeing and hearing God. The same way I know that anything in history happened. Although it's true, I cannot prove it beyond the shadow of a doubt that the Spanish Inquisition happened, but it's a known fact in history because it's impossible to be made up. Same exact way, the story of the Jewish people standing at Mount Sinai, hearing and seeing God, cannot be made up. It is, in our language, beyond the shadow of a doubt. It is proven logically that God exists based on the fact that he revealed himself to approximately 3 million Jews at Mount Sinai. So, if you want logic, you got it. But the truth is that belief in God is actually much deeper and much more. When I know something logically, when I can prove something logically, it's never going to be 100%, as we just said. You can always prove something wrong. You can always say another way of looking at it when you're talking about logic. When I see something in front of me, I know that it's there. You can bring me all the proofs in the world, all the logic in the world, but I know that right now, this phone in front of me, which I am videoing this lecture, is there. Why? Because I see it. Why does a Jew believe in God? Where does this belief come from? Do we just believe it based on nothing? We believe, this belief in our consciousness comes from the fact that our soul, so to speak, sees godliness. To our soul, godliness is a reality. Just like the physical world around us is a reality, so too to our soul, godliness is as true of a reality. That the soul sees, so to speak, godliness, that affects us in our consciousness, that we believe in God based on that. So belief comes out, is way deeper than knowing something logically. The truth is that faith is even deeper than seeing. Why do I know that I exist? Because I understand that I exist? Because I can prove to you that I exist? That I can prove to myself that I exist? Obviously not. Do I know that I exist because I see myself? No. I know that I am because it's me. The truth is that not only does the soul live in a world where the reality is godliness, the soul is godliness. Like we know that the soul of a Jew is a chelek elika mimal mamish, is a part of God above. Just like I know I exist, I know on the same exact clarity that God exists. That's belief. So, if you want to just understand, go ahead, we can prove it as well. But I would much rather base it on belief. Have a good day.